The cry for help, the emergency session of the Kepler Coalition, had been called in the deepest part of space, far from any star system that might draw unwanted attention. Ambassador Zara 7 stood before the assembled representatives, her crystalline form pulsing with distress signals that filled the chamber with haunting melodies. The Vorthik had always communicated through light and sound, but today her song carried only fear. "Honored members of the Coalition," Zara 7 began, her voice creating harmonics that translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We have lost the Meridian sector. 17 inhabited worlds gone in less than 2 weeks. A chamber erupted in shocked whispers and concerned chittering. Minister Corex of the amphibious Aquari delegation raised his webbed hand. Surely our defense fleets can establish a perimeter. The Meridian sector was lightly defended, but if we concentrate our forces, you do not understand," interrupted General Thane Prime, the towering insectoid leader of the Hive Collective's military forces. His compound eyes reflected the chambers, lights as he accessed the tactical data. The Shadow Collective is not simply conquering these worlds. They are consuming them, converting all matter into more of themselves. Within hours of their arrival, entire planets become nothing but raw materials for their expansion. Zara 7's form dimmed further as she projected the battle recordings for all to see. The Coalition's most advanced vessels, ships that could manipulate gravity and fold space itself, were being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to learn and adapt within moments of each engagement. "Our finest tacticians developed the Meridian Defense Protocol," she continued. "Coordinated strikes using our most powerful weapons, executed with perfect timing. The Shadow Collective studied our attack patterns for exactly 37 minutes, then countered with strategies we had never conceived. They turned our own weapons against us." Dr. Vex 9, the Coalition's chief strategist and member of the highly intellectual Cerebral Collective, floated forward in his containment suit. His massive brain pulsed with electrical activity as he processed the tactical data. "The enemy demonstrates accelerated learning capabilities that exceed our models. They appear to analyze our technology and tactics, then develop superior countermeasures at an exponential rate." "And what do you propose?" asked Minister Corex, his gills fluttering with anxiety. "The Coalition has stood for 3,000 years. We have solved every crisis through cooperation and advanced technology. Surely we can find a solution." Zara 7's crystalline structure began to resonate with a new frequency, one that made several species shift uncomfortably. "There is one possibility that our researchers have identified. It comes from the outer rim, from one of the youngest species to achieve interstellar travel." The chamber fell silent. The Coalition prided itself on technological advancement and refined civilization. The idea that a primitive species might hold the key to their salvation was almost unthinkable. "The humans," Zara 7 continued, "come from what our xenobiologists classify as a Class 12 death world. Their planet tried to kill them for millions of years through ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and predators that make our worst nightmares seem pleasant. They survived everything their world could throw at them." General Thane Prime's mandibles clicked with what might have been laughter. "You suggest we ask for help from a species that has barely mastered fusion power? Their ships are crude metal, constructs held together with primitive welding techniques." "Yes," Zara 7 replied firmly, "but they are also the only species in the galaxy that truly understands warfare. While we have spent millennia perfecting our civilizations, they have spent that same time learning to fight for survival. Every day, every generation. They call it evolution through adversity." Dr. Vex 9's brain activity increased dramatically. "The theoretical implications are fascinating. A species that has never known true peace would develop completely different tactical paradigms. Their military doctrine would be based on practical experience rather than theoretical models. But their technology is so primitive, protested Minister Corex. What could they possibly do that our advanced fleets cannot? Zara 7 displayed the final piece of intelligence that had convinced her to call this emergency session. 3 months ago, a human exploration vessel encountered a Shadow Collective scout ship near the Veil Nebula. The human vessel was a converted cargo hauler with welded-on weapons and armor plating. The Shadow Collective ship was one of their advanced hunter-killers. The chamber waited in tense silence as the battle recording played. The human ship, ugly and crude compared to Coalition standards, engaged the sleek Shadow Collective vessel in what should have been a hopeless fight. But instead of the expected outcome, the humans won. How? Whispered Minister Corex. They did not fight the way we fight, Zara 7 explained. They did not use coordinated tactics or advanced strategies. The human captain, a female named Elena Rodriguez, improvised her entire battle plan. She used her cargo containers as decoys, rammed the enemy vessel with her own ship, then sent boarding parties to fight inside the Shadow Collective ship with primitive projectile weapons. Madness, General Thane Prime declared. No rational commander would risk such tactics. Exactly, Zara 7 replied. The Shadow Collective could not predict or counter actions that made no logical sense. They had never encountered a species that fought with such creativity. Dr. Vex 9 was practically vibrating with excitement. The strategic implications are extraordinary. If the Shadow Collective cannot adapt to completely unpredictable tactics, then the humans' apparent lack of military doctrine becomes an advantage. They also, Zara 7 added quietly, have something else we have forgotten. They are willing to die for strangers. The human Captain Rodriguez risked her life and her crew to help a species she had never met. When we asked her why, she said it was because they could not stand by and watch innocent people suffer. The chamber fell into contemplative silence. The Coalition had achieved peace through logic and cooperation, but they had also grown soft. The idea of sacrifice for others was not foreign to them, but it was not the driving force it seemed to be for humans. The proposal, Zara 7 continued, is to formally request assistance from the United Earth Coalition. They have been observing us for some time, and their initial response to our preliminary contact was enthusiastic. Minister Corex looked skeptical. They would agree to fight an enemy that has defeated our combined fleets? What could they possibly gain from such a hopeless battle? I believe, Zara 7 said softly, they would do it simply because it is the right thing to do. Their species has a concept they call standing up to bullies. They seem to take personal offense when someone tries to destroy innocent people. The vote was closer than anyone expected, but the Coalition agreed to make the call. Within hours, the fastest communication array in the galaxy was transmitting a message to the small blue-green world on the galaxy's rim. Captain Elena Rodriguez was sitting in her command chair aboard the exploration vessel New Horizons when the message arrived. She was a tall woman with short black hair and eyes that held the steady gaze of someone who had seen combat. Her ship was exactly what the aliens had described, a converted cargo hauler with weapons and armor added wherever they would fit. Captain, called Lieutenant Tom Chun from the communications station, we're receiving a transmission from the Kepler Coalition. It's marked as urgent. Elena straightened in her chair. First contact with the galactic community had been formal and polite, but this was different. Put it through. The main screen flickered to show Zara 7's crystalline form. The aliens' light patterns were dim and frantic, creating a visual language that needed no translation. Captain Rodriguez, Zara 7 began, we have met before, but now I speak for the entire Kepler Coalition. We are facing an enemy that threatens all life in the galaxy. We have tried everything we know, used our most advanced technology and our finest strategic minds. We have failed. Elena listened intently as Zara 7 explained about the Shadow Collective, the consumed worlds, and the Coalition's desperate situation. The aliens' words painted a picture of destruction on a scale that made humanity's worst wars look like minor disagreements. We know your species is young, Zara 7 continued, and we know your technology is primitive by our standards. But you have something we have lost. You remember how to fight when the odds are impossible. You remember how to stand up when everyone else has fallen down. Alana felt something cold and hard settle in her stomach. She had seen what happened when good people did nothing, while monsters grew strong. Earth's history was full of such moments, and humanity had learned the price of inaction. Ambassador, Delana replied, we'll need to discuss this with Earth Command. But speaking personally, if there are innocent people dying and no one else can help them, then we have to try. Zara 7's form brightened for the first time since the crisis began. We had hoped you might say that. We know the risks. We know you would be fighting an enemy that has already defeated civilizations far more advanced than yours. But we also know that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is someone who refuses to give up. Elena looked around her bridge at her crew. They were all listening, all thinking the same thing. They were explorers and traders, not soldiers, but they were also human. And humans had never been good at walking away from a fight that needed fighting. Get me Earth Command, Elena ordered. Priority Alpha. Tell them we have a war to fight. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in thoughtful silence. Elena stared at the empty screen for a long moment, then turned to her crew. You all heard that. We're about to ask our entire species to risk everything for people we've never met, to fight an enemy we don't understand, in a war we might not be able to win. Sounds like Tuesday, replied Lieutenant Chun dryly, earning a few chuckles from the crew. Elena smiled. That's exactly what I was thinking. Within hours, the message had reached Earth Command, and within days, the response was traveling back to the Coalition. Humanity's answer was simple and direct. They would help, not because they expected to win, not because they saw some advantage in it, but because it was the right thing to do. The Deathworlders were coming to war. The Deathworlder, Response Admiral Marcus Chun, stood on the observation deck of the Earth Defense Force headquarters, watching the most incredible sight in human history unfold in the space around Earth. Were arriving from every corner of human-controlled space, responding to the call that had gone out to every colony, every military installation, every independent trader who carried human blood. The response had been overwhelming. Within 2 weeks of the Coalition's plea for help, humanity was assembling the largest fleet they had ever put together. Chun watched as the massive dreadnought Indomitable took position alongside converted mining ships, luxury liners with weapons hastily welded to their hulls, and cargo haulers that now bristled with missile pods and armor plating. Admiral, called Commander Sarah Martinez from behind him. The final squadron reports from the Centauri system have arrived. We're at full strength. Chun turned from the window, his weathered face serious. He had commanded fleets in the asteroid, belt conflicts and the corporate wars, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. How many ships total? 837 combat vessels of various configurations, Martinez replied, consulting her tablet, plus another 200 support ships, medical vessels, and supply carriers. Every human world contributed. Something. Chun nodded slowly. The aliens had expected humanity to send their best military vessels, but what they got was something entirely different. Humans had sent everything that could fly and fight, crewed by volunteers who came from every walk of life. The Coalition representatives are requesting another meeting, Martinez continued. Ambassador Zara 7 wants to review our battle plans. Before we depart, Chun allowed himself a small smile. I suspect she's going to be surprised. Send word that we'll meet them aboard the Indomitable in 2 hours. and asked Colonel Wright and Dr. Park to join us. The meeting took place in the Indomitable's main briefing room, a practical space designed for function rather than beauty. Ambassador. Zara 7 materialized via hologram, her crystalline form flickering slightly due to the long-range transmission. She was accompanied by General Thane Prime and Dr. Vex 9, representing the Coalition's military and scientific leadership. Admiral Chun, Zara 7 began, her musical voice filled with gratitude. We are amazed by your response. We had hoped for perhaps a dozen of your finest warships, but you have assembled an entire fleet. That's the human way, replied Colonel Sarah Wright from her position beside Chun. She was a compact woman with close-cropped red hair and the bearing of someone who had spent years in combat zones. When one of us is threatened, all of us respond. Dr. Vex 9's massive brain pulsed with curiosity as he studied the human fleet composition displayed on the room screens. Admiral, we must express concern about your tactical organization. Your fleet contains numerous non-military vessels that appear to have been hastily modified for combat. Surely your proper warships would be more effective. Dr. James Park, humanity's leading expert on alien technology, leaned forward with interest. He was a tall, thin man with graying hair and the intense focus of someone who lived for solving impossible problems. That's where you might be wrong, Doctor. Our analysis of the Shadow Collective suggests they learn by studying patterns and predicting behaviors. A fleet of identical military vessels would give them a clear pattern to analyze. But our fleet, Chun continued, has no standard pattern. Every ship is different. Every captain has their own fighting style. Every crew has their own way of solving problems. The Shadow Collective might be able to predict what a military academy graduate would do, but can they predict what a former asteroid miner will do when his ship is falling apart around him? Asterisk General Thane Prime's compound eyes focused intently on the tactical displays. This appears to be organized chaos. How do you coordinate such diverse forces? Colonel Wright grinned, an expression that made several aliens shift uncomfortably. We don't, not the way you're thinking. We give each captain a general objective and let them figure out how to achieve it. Some will try to outflank the enemy. Others will charge straight ahead. A few will probably try something completely insane that nobody could predict. The key, Dr. Park added, is that we're not trying to outthink the Shadow Collective. We're trying to be impossible to think about. How do you develop a counter-strategy for tactics that don't make sense? Zara 7's form pulsed with confusion, and hope in equal measure. But surely you must have some coordination? Some overall strategy? Admiral Chun nodded. We do. It's called controlled chaos. We've studied your battle reports, and every engagement follows the same pattern. The Coalition fleets attack with perfectly coordinated precision, and the Shadow Collective learns to counter that precision. But what happens when there's no precision to counter? The aliens spent several minutes processing this concept. Their entire civilization was built on logic, cooperation, and advanced planning. The idea of deliberately introducing chaos into a military operation was almost incomprehensible to them. There is something else, Colonel Wright said, her voice becoming more serious. We've been analyzing the Shadow Collective's behavior, and we think we understand something about them that you might have missed. They're not just learning your tactics, they're learning your psychology. Dr. Vex 9's brain activity increased dramatically. Explain. Every species in the Coalition fights the same way you think, Wright continued. Logical, calculated, with clear objectives and measurable outcomes. The Shadow Collective has learned that if they disrupt your command structure or destroy your primary weapons, your forces become predictable in their responses. But humans, Dr. Park added, don't become more predictable when things go wrong. We become less predictable. When a human's primary plan fails, They don't fall back to a predetermined secondary plan. They improvise. They adapt. They get angry. And do something nobody expected. Admiral Chun activated a holographic display showing human military history. For thousands of years, our greatest military victories came from people who did the impossible when everything seemed hopeless. We've won battles by charging uphill into superior firepower. We've won wars by refusing to surrender when any reasonable person would have given up. We've turned disasters into victories by doing exactly what the enemy thought we wouldn't dare try. The aliens studied the historical data with fascination and growing horror. Human military history was a catalog of impossible victories achieved through tactics that defied all logic. "This is madness," General Thane Prime whispered. "Yes," Colonel Wright agreed cheerfully. "But it's our kind of madness, and we're very good at it." The meeting concluded with the coalition representatives still struggling to understand human military doctrine. But Admiral Chun could see hope beginning to return to Ambassador Zara 7's crystalline form. As the aliens signed off, Chun turned to his senior staff. "All right, people, we have our orders. We're going to jump into the heart of Shadow Collective territory and pick a fight with an enemy that's already beaten the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Anyone having second thoughts?" The room was silent for a moment. Then Colonel Wright spoke up. "Admiral, with respect, if we were the kind of people who had second thoughts about impossible missions, we wouldn't be human." Dr. Park nodded agreement. "Besides, this is exactly the kind of problem we're good at solving. Take something that seems impossible and figure out how to do it anyway." 3 days later, the human fleet assembled at the jump point that would take them into Coalition space. A sight was both inspiring and terrifying. 800 ships of wildly different sizes and configurations, all crewed by volunteers who had left their homes and families to fight for strangers in a war they might not survive. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, looking out at his diverse fleet. Beside him, Captain Alana Rodriguez had joined the command staff. Her exploration vessel, New Horizons, now equipped with the most advanced weapons humanity could provide. "All ships report ready for jump," announced Commander Martinez. Chun opened a fleet-wide communication channel. "This is Admiral Chun to all vessels. In a few minutes, we're going to leave human space and enter a war zone. We're going to face an enemy that has destroyed civilizations that were building starships when our ancestors were still learning to make fire." He paused, looking out at the assembled fleet. "The aliens think we're crazy for volunteering for this mission. They might be right. They think our tactics don't make sense. They're definitely right about that. But they also think we might be the only hope left in the galaxy. And I believe they're right about that too." The fleet hung silent in space, hundreds of ships waiting for the word that would send them into the unknown. "We're going to show the Shadow Collective something they've never seen before," Chun continued. "We're going to show them what happens when you threaten innocent people and the Deathworlders decide to do something about it. All ships, prepare for jump." The space around Earth lit up with the brilliant flashes of jump drives engaging. One by one, the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with them the hopes of an entire galaxy and the stubborn determination of a species that had never learned how to give up. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, blue and green and beautiful. The cradle of humanity watched its children go to war among the stars, knowing that they carried with them something precious and dangerous, the willingness to fight impossible odds for people they had never met, simply because it was the right thing to do. The Deathworlders were on their way, and the galaxy would never be the same.